Hello and welcome back to Art Masters with me, Mrs. Portilla. Today we'll be working with pop artist or popular art artist, Roy Lichtenstein. Now what he liked to do is he liked to create dots. He would actually use a stencil with dots and paint over it to make very interesting backgrounds. So if you look behind me at his art here, you'll see he used dots for his background. He was also a commercial artist, which means he created art to be used in magazines and posters and other print. And when you're doing art for print and commercial, you want it to be very bold and bright. A lot of times there's a lot of contrast. The shapes should be interesting and filling up the space, and the colors and maybe some patterns. Today we'll be working on a still life, which is an arrangement of non-living objects, and we'll be doing some cutouts using Roy Lichtenstein's dots. We'll be using a lot of our negative space, which is the leftover pieces, basically the space behind, and this is the positive. And we're going to be creating a very dynamic layout and finding a lot of balance with our shapes and our colors. So go ahead and grab your supplies and we'll get started. Okay, so once we have our supplies, we're ready to start our pop art still life. So if you have this sheet, this has examples of some shapes. If you don't, I'll leave it on the next slide. You could pause it on there. So you can see we have our shapes. We're gonna do a tea set. That's what I'm gonna do as an example. You can actually do any shape that's simplified, but I'm gonna do the tea set with some cups. So we're going to take our dotted paper and turn it over, and we're going to draw our design. So you want to keep it kind of large, so I'm going to do the largest item first, this teapot. And I'm going to do it kind of in the center, so you can see it's kind of at a diagonal line with a round shape on top coming back down. And then I'm actually going to draw the handle on this side. Come over, down, and attach. And then it has a triangle for a spout and a circle on the top. Next, I'm going to draw the cup, and I'm going to overlap my shape. So you can see the cup. We're going to start with a U shape going into the teapot. And then I'm going to attach it. And I'm going to put a flat line for the saucer that it's on. Go right into there. And I'm going to put my handle here. And now you could start to see there's some interesting shapes happening since I overlapped. The next thing I'm going to draw is, let's do a jug of glass jug, or you could do a cup. Let's do the cup. I'm going to overlap. Bring it back down. And there's my cup. And I may even do a straw because that is interesting. Okay, so for now, I'm just going to do the three shapes, and you see how they're overlapped. So go ahead and grab your dotted paper and your pencil. And if you want to copy the shapes that I did, that's fine. If you want to come up with your own shapes, just make sure they're simplified. And I'll put on the next slide some examples of shapes that you may want. Now you should have your drawing on the back of your dotted paper. It should be pretty big, taking up most of the paper. So I'm going to overlap my black paper and my dotted paper. And I'm going to cut around the outer line. So if you think of this as one giant shape, I'm going to cut around just this outside line. And then when that's done, I'm going to still keep them held together. I may go in and cut some of these inner shapes. So we're going to start by cutting the outer line only. Think of it as one big giant shape. So you see here, I'm not going to cut down all the way in. I'm just following the outer shape for now. If you make a mistake and you do cut in, that's okay. Just keep all of your scraps because that's how we're going to make it interesting. So I'm cutting around the straw. And you see how I'm just cutting on the outer shape. So go ahead and stack your papers, cut along the outer shape, and don't cut inside the shapes yet. Now your outer shape should be cut. You should be able to lift it out. You want to keep this negative space. So this is the positive space, this is the negative space. We want to keep this. So I'm going to set that aside, and I'm going to keep this pinched together. I'm going to cut out some of my inside shapes. I don't have to cut them all out. So you can decide which shapes you want to cut. I think I'm going to go around the coffee cup here. Let's see. I think I'm going to cut my cup around this handle. And just keep it like that. So go ahead and pick a couple of shapes to separate from your one big shape. So you should have your shapes cut out, and when you flip them over, you'll see the dotted and the black. And then if you want to cut the inside of your teapot, I'm going to fold it. And I'm kind of going to fold it again in the middle here. Just like that. And then I'm going to just do like a little cut, just like that, just so I could get in there. And then I'm going to cut out this handle. If that's too tricky, you could just snip it there and glue it down here. Okay, so now we should have our shapes, and we're going to glue them down on our red giant piece of paper. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to arrange our shapes. So that just means we're not going to glue anything down. This is about the design and the composition, and we're going to find the balance of our composition. So where we place our shapes and our elements is going to matter. So if you remember what your drawing looked like, you might want to, could kind of reconstruct it. But you see how I'm gonna overlap. So I'm gonna overlap. You could do the dots over your black shape. So I'm gonna overlap my shape. And right now, like I said, I'm just arranging. So I'm going to lay out the things, my elements, my shapes, in a way that I think looks pleasing. We also are going to use our negative space shapes. So we can cut them, glue them. See how I'm going to move everything over. See how it looks. And then I may cut this. Cut your negative space scraps. And do some layout. So go ahead and take all of your pieces and just arrange them to where you think they look good on your sheet of paper, and then we'll go ahead and glue them down. So once you have your pieces arranged and glued down, see how I added the negative space, I cut it. You really want to overlap, and you could even turn it upside down and see how it still looks balanced. Even though it's upside down, it still looks balanced. There's some negative space. However, when I turn mine upside down, I'm seeing a lot of space right here. So I may go back in and use some scraps and, you know, make something interesting just to break up that space. So that's the benefit of turning something upside down. Now, you may have also got some yellow paper. So you could choose to use this or not. You could go ahead and cut out similar designs, or you could just use this for highlighting shapes. I may cut out a big simplified circle. So when we're doing graphics, you want to do big simplified shapes. The bold color and contrast look really good when you're doing print. So go ahead and finish gluing. Maybe use your yellow paper for some details, shapes. Turn it upside down, see if it still looks balanced, and then finish up your work. So thank you for joining me today and doing our still life pop art or popular culture art. I hope that you really enjoyed doing your work and that you can now look at your work and notice where you used your negative space, how you have bright contrast, and how everything is balanced. And maybe you even turned your art upside down to make sure it was balanced right side up and upside down. So we hope that you enjoyed yourself, and we will see you next time on Art Masters.